Welcome to the IA on AI podcast, part of the Audit Podcast Network, where we bring you weekly updates on AI from the internal auditor's perspective. Question we ask everybody, but especially interested in your thoughts. How are you using AI? Do you have favorite prompts, use cases, etc.? Personal life, business life?
Yeah. So it's changed. When first had this conversation, I was Anthropic that in my mind. I was Clauded up and down. I have since put those, tokens in, cash them in. I still use Claude for my business, so still enjoy Claude Code, and I still think that the models that they have are better for business coding, etc. We can get to the model stuff later, but now recently I've adopted Gemini for my personal use. So on my phone, I just go to Gemini. I don't even go to Claude unless I'm using Claude Code on my phone. But if you're gonna Google something, which we all do, why not use the model of Google? And whatever they did in the last update, I tried to build a personal assistant because I didn't like any of the assistant stuff out there. And then I tried Gemini and it's so much better than it used to be. So now I just use that. It talks to me. I can talk to it. It Googles things.
This
So yeah,
this recent
personal
model
uses.
was because I don't hang out with Gemini hardly at all. We have one client that we worked with that they were on it, and so I learned enough to be able to talk to them about it. That newest model you're talking about, I feel like I read something about that. Maybe even today. Is it within the past week or two that that came out, or is there
No,
something?
well, they did an announcement about a month or two ago, and they just released a new model, I think yesterday.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, they haven't released their Pro yet, unless they did it today, and I was aware. But they had this huge AI event. I want to say in like March, maybe April. Don't quote me, but that was a big turning point for them. And if anybody's been paying attention, you could clearly see where all these frontier providers are going. Like Google's clearly looking at the personal use case. They're not. I don't. They have Google Workspace,
Mhm.
but we all use Gmail. We all use Google Calendar, and so I just find it convenient. Like I could use Claude and Connect and stuff, but just I want to Google something, I might as well just Gemini, and it's so much more robust. So that's what I do. That's my new thing.
So your personal uses are basically, hey, this is what I would historically Google, and now I use Gemini.
Yeah, I don't even Google anything anymore. I just ask Gemini, which is the same thing. It's the same I mean, there's no difference, but it's a more robust experience, and you have that natural language chat. Now, I will say this, and we'll get to this later. Um, we are now kicking the tires on open weight, open source, open weight. There's differences in the general speaking, the stuff that doesn't cost money, right? I think that is the next frontier. That's the next LinkedIn post that I will point to in eager. But anyway, that's where we're at.
So that is personal use. You're going Gemini now. Business use. You're going Claude.
Still on Anthropic. I won't knock out ChatGPT. I think they keep changing the names and the levels and all this stuff, but I think the new 5.6, I think that's right, um, has some promise, and they released, of course, their work OS, whatever it's called. Um, but generally speaking, still Anthropic for the moment. Stay tuned.
Talking to someone who is just pure AI. All this, we're talking like different tools. He's like, well, I use them all, save for Copilot. And I think he was talking about the same thing. He was a Claude guy, and he said he's kind of going back to ChatGPT because of the codecs and work and all the integration that's going on in there.
I don't use Cursor. So
Okay.
for those Cursor fans out there, I know folks at Cursor. It's a lovely product. Maybe I'll use it one day. But having I will say this, there's an open source, well, not really open source, but Conductor is a tool that I think is extremely useful where you can swipe through different models and stuff. But I just sort of a curmudgeon with I use uh Claude Code. So
I think this is the frustrating thing for most people is like how confusing it is for each frontier company to keep up with what they're doing. I mean, even when we just talked Copilot, we had to get someone to share their screen because they were like, "Do I have Studio? And we're trying to tell them, it's like, just go, like, you're just gonna have to share your screen because, and they went, well, I think I have the free one. I think I have this one. I think I have this one. Can I even do that in mine? So they're definitely not, I mean, they never have made it easy. What, I mean, it's been a year or so, but it was like GBT 3, 3.0, 4. Nope, 3 is better than 4. Wait, O is better. And none of it makes sense. I don't know who the marketing team is out there, but
That's the problem. It's all marketing. It is, and I don't like to put on tinfoil hats, but I think I find it convenient that Microsoft, speaking of Copilot, Microsoft invests in OpenAI. Then they don't like OpenAI. Then they're like, oh, well, this co-work thing's taken off. We'll build co-work into Copilot, which that marketing made no sense to me. And then they go, hey, guess what we have? We have our own models. And oh, by the way, we're just going to make those the standard on all of our Office products. And then for funsies, we're gonna make Gemma 4 available because everybody wants to go openly. But we'll host it for you. You'll pay us a little bit. Like I Microsoft is the most interesting company because if you recall every single move, usually they're first, which is strange to me, but it just everybody follows them. And so if you want to see where the tides are flowing, just pay attention to the Microsoft X feed or whatever.
as we're talking about co-work, update since the last time we talked. And I actually know someone who, a CAE who I was talking to, and she's like, I never even heard of this. I mean, this was what, months ago. She's like, I never even heard of this. And now, like, we're using it all the time because Brian was on the show talking about it. So, specifically to that person who's probably, when they see that your name's going to be on this episode, is going to go, oh, yeah, I should probably check this out. What's been going on since the last time you're on?
Well, when we released our episode, it was already outdated. I mean, it just um true. And now they have this new product called I think it's Tabs. It's where it's in your Slack, you know. It's all connected, but um essentially the update on Cowork is that it is now like their entire product suite, Anthropic's product suite has merged. You'll notice if you go in on the desktop app, your chat and your coworker are in the same place. Code's its own little thing. You can basically remote from your phone and do co-work on its own. Um, I what I tried to express to people poorly last time was co-work co-work was essentially what you would build for yourself using Claude Code. It just connected to everything on your computer. I think we talked about security, etc. And then they're like, "Oh, here's what we'll do. We'll just make this super easy for people and call it co-work, and then you can basically work in your files and it'll do things. But what we won't do is we won't make it like the blast radius will be small. They'll sandbox everything and they put some guardrails around it. And so everybody jumped in. What I find to be the most, I don't want to call it funny, but I had, you don't read the comments, but I do. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, we can't use that. It's still in beta. Oh, it's not production." And those people are still sitting on the sidelines watching, and everybody else has just been taking laps. Kudos to those folks. So I think the update is, it is useful. Nothing's really changed. I think they've made some improvements in terms of the performance around Cowork. As I mentioned in the previous session that they partnered with Microsoft, and now you have Microsoft Copilot Cowork, which is not the most confusing thing ever. Um, OpenAI released their own. I think they call it Work, Codex Work or whatever. You know, I think a lot of people in the industry, finance in general, figured out that um, if you know how to use the coding agents, you could do everything and have a more robust engine to do stuff than just using Cowork. And so the summary is it's there, it's user friendly. Please try it out if you haven't yet. And then, um, yeah, that's really the update, I think.
So you can use either co-work, or you can use co-work, or you can use work. Is that the best way to summarize the confusion?
Pretty much. And I feel bad for anybody who is kind of locked into a Microsoft account because they change so frequently. And like you said, it's hard to determine what you're using. They have a zillion different applications that all connect across everything. And so it's very overwhelming, even for me. I was working in a M365 environment, and it was just like, what am I looking at? Um, so in terms of user friendliness, it's not, it's not the, Microsoft's not the greatest, unfortunately, but um, I think if anything, the product folks at all these frontier companies have been listening to the users and have been giving, Anthropic seems like every week there's something new. And I think that they are making this more approachable. Um, and naturally, they all partnered with a bunch of consulting firms and spun up their own consulting arms to help people, ingest all this stuff, which who could have seen that one coming? Flat Circle Labs. If anybody's interested in AI enablement, please reach out. Brian at flatcirclelabs.com. But yeah, so that's the update. It's still there. All your skills are still there. All your plugins, skills, MCPs. Got to connect to your data, guys. If you don't, you're in trouble. Don't CSV everything. Um,
All right, you did mention open weight, open model earlier. Describe the differences between those and give us kind of your perspective on those. I know for anybody that's followed Brian on LinkedIn, he's been preaching this for a while now. Let's just get your thoughts around that.
yeah. So Um, open weight and open source are not exactly the same, but they're not too dissimilar. I think the easiest way to just think about it is it's a model that you host yourself. So you don't have a cloud out of the box. You can definitely create your own server bank with all your NVIDIA graphic cards and host it yourself. But it's essentially a zero cost. The open weight part is um, it the the technical difference, and somebody will correct me here, is open source, you are able to see the how it's trained. Open weight gives you the ability that you can train them both is essentially where I'm going with this. Um, you can essentially train your own models. And I I stumbled upon this a while back and I didn't really give too much credence to it because I ultimately think that all of the models and all the frontier stuff will just rush. It's a race to the bottom in terms of cost, and I think we'll get there. Obviously, in the last call it 6 months, everybody kind of lost their minds because now I think token maxing uh, caused a stir. Everybody blew through their budgets, etc. So we've arrived here with open weights, and unfortunately, the majority of the open weight models that you can get through Hugging Face or whatever are not what's the word? What's the politically correct word? Are not American. And there is some political question marks about the safety, etc. But in the end, everybody that was using OpenClaw quickly realized that, oh, I can just use Kimi or I can use Gemma, which Gemma's the Google open way. So that's something you could look into. But um, I I'm a big proponent of it because you're eventually going to have the hardware that you own, like your MacBook or your PC, be the limiting factor right now is not just the models themselves, but it's really the hardware that you would run it on. And so you like, as an example, the top model for Gemma 4 requires you to essentially have like the maxed out MacBook Pro with
I think
I
it's
think
like
it's
I saw something earlier. I think it would cost like 5 grand. Does that sound right?
yeah, I mean today, right? Like
Yeah.
you're limited. I mean, if you think about the AI infrastructure boom, why
Yeah.
is Micron and why are NVIDIA like it takes a lot of hardware to run these models. Every when you connect to Anthropic or OpenAI and you do all your stuff, you are tapping into their cloud infrastructure, which is data centers stacked on top of
Mhm.
data. I mean, the
So
cost is prohibitive right now.
like you don't need that with open weight. You need effectively a $5,000 machine and hit the
Well,
download button.
so there's different weights. Okay. Um, there's different levels, and each weight requires different hardware.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to have the tip top, and I forget the name of it, but the top Gemma 4 model basically requires you to have a MacBook Pro M5 Max, 128 gig memory, all these things. You could go down to I think it's 7B, forgive me. It's the lower one, and you could basically run that on an old, your old PC. But it doesn't give you the robustness. It doesn't give you all the things you need. The key here is though, speaking from the world that I inhabit, which is the finance world, a lot of this stuff you don't need Fable or, you know, these top models to do the work. A lot of this stuff, you could just use some of these open weight models that are relatively simple to you can ingest right now in your laptop. There's no security issues at all because it's all local. You own it. And then my next LinkedIn post in a couple months will be talking about training your model and how that works. Um, you have seen a few of these headlines. I forget the law firm that spent like $500 million training their models. That's where we're going to end up. Maybe not $500 million worth, but Ramp. I always point to Ramp. I think they were doing pretty incredible stuff. Ramp AI Labs, and they trained their sheets. Um, I think it's called Ramp Sheets. They trained their model. They used an open weight model, had it trained to basically work spreadsheets. There's a whole write up about it. I think I'll link to it. And that's the future. And they're way ahead of the game. So I'm very interested in following folks like that. I follow a few different people that to stay up. This stuff changes so fast, but there's a lot of folks who are very open. They share a lot of stuff. They're very knowledgeable. And yeah, open weight. If you don't know about it, get to know about it because the next time we have this update, we'll be talking about open weights exclusively, I think.
It has been the hot topic in all the AI newsletters and podcasts and all the like over the past week, maybe 2 weeks. So
I think I think once I don't remember if it was the Uber CTO or when Microsoft said we're going to cut all of our spending on Anthropic, but somebody somewhere with an MBA screwed up the forecast, and everybody goes rutro, and now they're like, oh, what about open weight? And that was then the floodgates were open, and so I think now the narrative is how can I continue to get the same relatively the same output from my agents without spending a jillion dollars on, because one, the response from Anthropic was, oh, you don't want to use all the models for different things. And you could use Fable to plan, and then it'll send Opus to do sort of the infrastructure, and then it'll call Haiku to do some of the lower level stuff. And they're trying to do some orchestration, and I think OpenAI is doing the same thing. And so all of the frontiers are like, well, hold on, we can orchestrate all this. You don't have to use the top of the line models for everything. And so we'll build in that kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but they'll basically tune it up and tune it down as needed throughout the workflow. Uh, I don't see how you avoid, um, because they all wanna go IPO. That's been the biggest news thing, and when you go IPO, you have to pay for all this stuff, and so I don't unfortunately don't see it I don't see them cutting costs. Although, I will say it was fascinating that Fable got extended and extended and extended conveniently right around the same time that OpenAI released 5.6, and then 5.6 apparently was, like, Fable level, but, like, half the cost.
we have about 1 minute, Brian. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I'm looking at the clock. And then, regardless of where you are, we're just going to cut you off.
It's like the
uh,
Oscars, the music plays,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
just
yeah,
get walked out.
yeah. Screen goes to black. All right. So I'll give you 60 seconds. Leave the audience with whatever you want to.
Yeah, no, open weight, and not only open weight, but also being model agnostic. So don't marry one of the frontiers. And if you have the ability to build out your own, call it co-work, I point to the like I said, Ramp built out Glass. I think what they built was incredible. Shopify, another company that's at the forefront of this, has River, which is their Slack bot, and they're all using different models across their organization. So you don't really marry one. You definitely want to be agnostic to all. And I sound like a broken record, but start with your data, start with your workflows, analog, do your audits, figure out where you want to implement AI. You don't have to have AI to do everything. And the less AI you have, probably the better, but it definitely is a force multiplier. So make sure that you're multiplying good things.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to follow the link to greenskiesanalytics.com in the show notes and schedule time to see how Green Skies can make the hype of AI a reality in your internal audit department.